Prawn here, and at day 73 in 7 Days to Die, I've learned quite a few things that I want to share with you to make your life a little bit easier. Things that I've discovered that I might have overlooked before, that maybe you have too, that will make your life easier when looting and trying to survive. The first of these relates to skills books. Now, you probably already know that reading skills books gives you skills and unlocks various things, either for crafting purposes or just skills to use in the world. But what you might not have realised is that beyond looking at the list of skills, so if you go into the skills section, you can click on the book icon and see which books you've read for each of the relevant skills here on specific things, or in the crafting section, you can see how far you've progressed in that list, reading those sorts of books, that you can actually find out another way. So if you look at this, you'll see that I've unlocked maximum medical journals in terms of reading. Now, there's a little icon which will actually hint at this. So if you look at a book and you see the closed book icon next to it, that means you actually haven't read all the books in that series. So in this case, Tech Planet, I haven't finished all those books yet. However, if you see an open book, as you do here with Forge Ahead, so you can see the leaves of the book are open in the icon, that means I have read all the Forge Ahead books and I don't need to read this one. So I can either not pick it up to save space in my inventory, or I can take it with me and give it to friends if we're playing co-op mode for them to read it. So watch out for the little open book icon as a good indicator. You can also go into the skills section, obviously, and have a look. So you can see the workstations here. I've completed all the Forge Ahead books, 75 of 75, and I can craft everything. But this little book indicator can be a really quick way when you're out and about looting to see which ones you need and which you don't. There's also an audible cue, so a little noise, a little musical chime happens when you finish a series of books. You can hear it just there where I completed reading Pistol Pete, for example, and so I now have maximum pistol skills. So if you go to the books section, you can see Pistol Pete is now level 7 of 7, and I've got all the benefits of that, including the maximum one, which is shots fired at point blank range will ignore armor. So listen out for that sound and watch out for that icon, and that can really help. Now, in terms of magazines, I have another tip for you. You can go around in towns. So if you've got a motorbike or a vehicle, if you bomb around in towns and look out for these newspaper holders, the dispensers there will often have magazines and books in them, and you'll find them all over the place, and they will respawn. Keep going round and round nearby towns, and you'll basically be able to get loads of these books and then level up multiple times. Obviously, when you've improved your crafting skill, you'll see that you can make higher level gear. So a stone axe, for example, I can make level 6, but I need legendary parts for that. Now, if you just need a stone axe when you're out and about, or any other tool, for example, you might want to craft a lower level one. You can still cycle through the list by using the left and right arrows next to the tool to make a lower one. So you can see level 5 doesn't need legendary parts, so it's easier to craft. This can be handy knowledge if certain things are very hard to craft early on for you. This next tip involves me in making a mistake that you'll want to avoid, but it is also including useful ones on modifying weapons when on the go. So while out and about here looting, I managed to find myself a level 5 machete. I already had a level 2 one, but I accidentally went to scrap it without meaning to, so I scrapped it. What you can see there is you can cancel it if you're quick enough to stop that from happening. I have a level 2 machete, which if I click onto the modifications section, take the mods off of it, I can then put it onto the level 5 machete and scrap the original one. Scrapping weapons will give you weapon parts, which means you can then craft better ones when you're back at base. But obviously it also saves space because the mods are then on that tool, and I don't need to worry about them taking up space in my inventory. Now, space in your inventory is obviously a big problem in the game. Sometimes you'll be forced to throw away things that perhaps you don't really need, prioritizing some things over others. But what I've also found is useful is to modify weapons when you're out and about. So if you find a mod, put it on one of your tools or weapons, even if you don't particularly want to use it, because you can always take it off again later on when you go back to base. So you can then put it on the tool, take it off again, and that way you're maximizing your inventory management skills. Once you've progressed a bit further into the game and you've got yourself a 4x4 or a gyrocopter, you might be trying to scrap your motorbikes or mini bikes or bikes and finding that you can't do it, which is a shame. However, there is some good news in that traders will buy your old vehicles. So if you don't want them anymore, you can go to a trader and sell your vehicles. So you can see I've got my motorbike and bicycle here. You can sell them to the trader for a certain amount. Now, it's worth noting that I actually would suggest not doing this. You sell your bicycles and maybe your mini bikes, but you'll probably want to keep the motorbike, and I'll show you why in a second. But you can see here that you can sell it for a certain amount. I've got 600 casino tokens there, so that was just for the bike. So they're not completely useless even after you've crafted them. You might find they're clogging up your inventory, but actually you can get rid of them, so that's one thing to bear in mind. That said, however, one thing I have discovered is that 4x4s are not as resistant to damage as motorbikes. And if you off-road them, which makes no sense by the way, you'll do a lot of damage to them because you can just crash into rocks and trees and zombies, and you'll soon find that your vehicle's getting really damaged. You can see here I'm down to 20% now on this, and it's not in a good way. I don't have any repair kits to repair it, so that's not ideal. However, I do still have a motorbike on me, so I've got a motorbike in my stash, which I can then put down. So I've taken all these things that I had in the vehicle and put them into my inventory, and now I'm going to transfer them over to the motorbike, and then I'm going to take everything out of the vehicle and put that in there, with the idea being that I'll then be able to pick up the car and take it with me. Alternatively, obviously, you could hop on your motorbike, drive off into the distance, try and find a repair kit, and then come back and fix your 4x4. But what I've found is this is useful if your vehicle gets damaged, or if you suddenly run out of fuel, that you can grab the motorbike and just drive off. Otherwise, you're going to have to huff it on foot, which should obviously not be ideal. Vehicles are super handy when it comes to storing loot, because you can obviously put a lot of the things that you're carrying in your inventory in them, and then you can see them on the map and on your compass. So loot a building, come out, put your loot in the vehicle, go around, loot some more. It will really free up space. So having the mini bike, the motorbike, and the 4x4 can make a big difference. You can also upgrade those potentially, so keep improving things, and you'll find a drone as well later on in the game where you'll be able to put stuff in that too. However, what I want to give you is another tip about storage, which you might have missed, which is actually really obvious, but makes life a lot easier. So if you look at your inventory, if we take the motorbike here, for example, click on the storage, on the right hand side there's a little icon, a cardboard box with a down arrow in it. What that will do is it'll put everything from your inventory into the vehicle storage that matches stuff that's already in there. So it'll put piles of thing in there. So for example, if I've got lead in the bike, I press on that button, it will take all the lead out of my inventory and put it in there and stack those up, which is really handy. If you lockpick an ATM, you can get cash out of it. That cash, dollar bills, can be sold to traders for coins, which can then be used to buy things. However, if you use a scrapping tool after you've unlocked it and keep scrapping, you can get both forged iron and forged steel out of ATMs. So that's worth watching out for, because that's very handy. Vending machines that aren't powered will also do the same. They'll give you lots of different materials, including forged iron and forged steel, which are really hard to get hold of. So it's well worth scrapping every vending machine you see. When it comes to scrapping things, and I'd recommend scrapping everything, I'd highly recommend getting an impact driver as soon as you can, whether that's from crafting or trying to find one in the world. Impact drivers are really efficient at scrapping things. They use minimal stamina once you've upgraded your skills a bit, and you can just keep going and going with very little issue. You also get loads of materials this way. If you want to get lots of iron, you can see I'm scrapping this generator here, I'm picking up loads of iron, which is really handy for crafting forged iron and steel. Sometimes, though, scrapping's a pain, and it's actually easier to pick things up instead. If you grab office chairs that you see in the world, which, by the way, there seem to be more of in the snowy zones and the wasteland, you can put these into your inventory, and then you can just press S to scrap them. You can see picking up office chairs has given me loads of leather here. So grab every office chair you see and scrap it for extra leather. But this also applies to camping chairs and other sorts of chairs. These camping chairs, for example, give me iron. Iron's really useful for forged iron, so it's well worth doing, picking them up, scrapping them, rather than trying to hit them with a tool. It's just quicker. When it comes to scrapping, though, I love scrapping cars. You get so many different materials. Look on the right-hand side of the screen and you can see just absolutely loads of materials from scrapping cars. You can search them first and take things out of them, but actually if you scrap them without searching them, when you've finished, the loot will just fall out of the car onto the floor as a bag, so you can actually pick it up that way. But you can see all sorts of materials can be got this way, including obviously gas to power your vehicle and repair kits if you're lucky, as well as loads of different parts for basically crafting more things back at your base. Anything you don't want can also be scrapped on the go to produce even more materials that you do want. I don't need loads of engines at this point, for example, so that can be handy. This next tip requires patience and an impact driver for optimum use. But my friend taught me this one, and it's basically about scrapping lorries. So if you find big lorries, you can scrap them. Basically what you need to do is to remove the bottom rung of them just above the wheelbase. So keep scrapping this, and you'll have to do several sections. You can see it takes quite some time, even with an impact driver. But I've eliminated one bit of that. Now I've got to work my way across the entirety of the base in order to do what I'm going to do. This is actually optimizing the scrapping of the entire thing, though. I found this is really useful if you need lots of iron for forged iron and forged steel, which is very handy in crafting various things. But when you do it, you'll find that the lorry just collapses entirely, and eventually all the parts break down. And what you'll then find is that there's loads of girders on the floor. If you hit these girders with a melee weapon or with a tool, you will find that you get 30 bits of iron per one that you hit. So you're getting quite a lot of materials out of a lorry like this. Eventually it will respawn as well. If you find a powered vending machine in the world, they're pretty great because they can give you various different candies and things, which can give you various different boosts and improve your skills temporarily. But one thing that's also worth bearing in mind is that they can have other uses if you're brave enough and if you have the right equipment and meds. These ones are actually quite close to our base. So what I wanted to do is basically go about buying up everything that was inside it, because we had quite a lot of money to spend anyway, and then seeing if I could dismantle it. Now with an impact driver, you can go about dismantling this, and you'll see that I'm getting quite a lot of forged iron and steel out of it. I am, however, also getting electrocuted and losing quite a bit of health, so that's why you'll need some meds on you and perhaps the ability to resist that sort of thing. But it did end up giving me all of this stuff out of it and then more items for crafting. You'll often find police cars that are locked throughout the world, and if you pick them with lockpicks, you'll get in there and you'll find some good loot, and it is worth doing. However, if you don't have any lockpicks, what you can do is you can just scrap them. However, what happens is when you scrap them, initially it will set the alarm off, which then calls in like waves of zombies from the nearby location. This can be actually quite a fun mini game for good experience points if you're equipped for it, because obviously you get quite a lot of experience for killing zombies. So there's more of them to deal with, so you get more experience points that way. However, it's worth knowing that you need to fully destroy the car, breaking the lock on the police car to open the storage to stop the alarm from happening. Otherwise, it's just going to carry on. So you'll need to do that, make sure it's done completely, and then you can scrap the entire police car after you've looted it as well. So you can't just scrap them like normal vehicles without the risk of calling in hordes of zombies. My friend Space Cannons was up there basically dismantling it while we were fighting, and that stopped the alarm going off. But now we can go about looting the car and then dismantling it as well. Another thing that generally needs lockpicks is safes, wall safes like this one. However, you can smash the lock. So if you keep scrapping it until it breaks, you'll find that it then becomes untouched and you can then search it. And then you can carry on scrapping it for more materials. So bypass the need for lockpicks by just scrapping things. Use this next tip with caution, because there are certain armor unlocks which could help boost and improve this, and modifications and skills. But what you might find is you're on a really tall building and you don't want to get all the way back down again. So an alternative is to just jump off of it. Now this seems bonkers, especially if you see the height of the building. You might think you're just going to plummet to your death. But quite often I found that just jumping off a very tall building results in maybe a strained leg or a broken limb, and not immediate death. And even if you do die, you could just spawn near your body again and just go grab your backpack and not have any problems. You can see I've jumped off a significantly tall building here and just broken my leg a little bit. But that's fine, because I was going to get on the bike and ride home anyway. And if you've got a splint, you could just fix up your wound. If you're thinking about moving base, then you might want to move things with you. You can see that I'm picking up my cement mixer. Now, I didn't realise this was possible because it's not obvious, but you have to press and hold E on items like the cement mixer, the forge and the workbench to then select the hand icon to be able to pick them up. They first also have to be empty of stuff and not in use, and then you can pick them up. And I'm doing it here because I was basically trying to complete a challenge. My friend had already put the cement mixer down, which meant I didn't get the challenge for deploying the cement mixer, so I basically wanted to be able to pick it up and put it back down in exactly the same place in order to complete that challenge. Press Y and go to the challenges section, and you will see that's now complete, and I can hand it in. Now, as long as you've got a land claim block within region of these base items that you're trying to pick up, you should then be able to pick them up. However, they first also need to be repaired if they're damaged, and empty of stuff, so make sure there's nothing in them. This is difficult with the forge if you've been smelting loads of things in it, so you'll have to empty it fully before you can pick it up, but it can be handy if you want to move base or do other things. Obviously, you know that you can find different ores in the world, so you might find something like this, for example, where you can get iron out of it. And I'm wandering around trying to find nitrate at the moment. What I've discovered, though, is it's actually possible to find these things on the map, although it is a little fiddly and perhaps not obvious immediately. But if you look at the map and zoom right in, you'll see there's lots of little coloured markers, little blips on the map. You'll see a white one, a grey one, a brown one. They're tiny little, tiny squares on the map. But if you put a quick marker next to them, you can then wander over and have a look at what they are. So you can see this one is actually a lead deposit. Now, you'll find a big sort of lump of a node on top of it, and then you can actually dig underground to the whole thing. There's a lot more underground if you keep digging. But basically what you need to do is to work out what these look like, the colour of them, and then go to them in the world. I'd recommend using quick waypoints to do this. When you've found the ones you want to, you can also use a save waypoint instead. So when you right click on the map, you'll see an option to put save waypoint. You can then give it a name. So for this nitrate one, for example, I could put a marker next to that on the map which says nitrate, and then I'd know where it was, and then I could keep revisiting it. What you'll find is these things are huge. Once you start digging down underground with a pickaxe, going to town on them and working your way around them, they're more than just on the surface. So there's a lot more there than is immediately obvious. If you want coal for some reason, you're having trouble getting it, then one of the ways to get it is to go to the burnt forest and then just chop at the embers on the floor. You'll find a bunch of coal there. You can see you're just getting coal every time you're hitting it, so you don't need to mine. You just need to go to the burnt forest and basically just do this and keep bashing it. Obviously, you can then use the coal for things like crafting gunpowder, for example. Killing zombies gives you experience points. Killing bears also gives you experience points. If you crouch and shoot them from a distance, you can do more damage, and that gets better over time, and then you'll get a decent amount of XP. You can see I've got 3,000 XP from this bear, and then obviously you can chop up the corpse for those extra resources too. That's it for this tips and tricks video, but hopefully you found it useful. I'm going to do more in future, so subscribe to see those. Check out the playlist to other videos on 7 Days to Die as well, because I've done some more previously, and then also subscribe if you'd like to see gameplay of me and my friends playing, because we've got a lot of fun and it's been quite crazy, as you can see from this moment where I got absolutely surrounded and destroyed by loads of zombies. Thanks very much for watching.